I want to be generous with God. I want to be generous with my life. I want to be generous with my time. I want to be generous with everything that I have. You know, every time I was generous with God, God has always blessed me so much more than I could ever hope or imagine. You know, when I came to encounter the love of Jesus, before I encountered Jesus, I had a love for music. I had a massive CD collection. Now, for those of you who don't know what a CD is, it's a small disc called a compact disc, before MP3s. And I had a massive collection of music of all different types of artists, but at the time I was very much into a lot of dark music, a lot of dark heavy metal. But I felt through my spiritual director, but also through my time of prayer, that I needed to stop listening to this music because it was bringing me down. Because this type of music was not good for the spirit that was lifting me up towards Jesus after encountering his love. And so I remember standing in front of my hundreds of CDs and thinking, Jesus, I'm willing to get rid of all of these to pursue you. And I cried. I cried because I knew that God may be asking me for this. And so I get out a hammer and I break all of these CDs. And as I'm doing this, I'm crying. And I'm thinking that I'm crazy. And I'm thinking, what if I'm making a mistake? What if I'm doing the wrong thing? And I'm starting to think, maybe I could do this tomorrow, when I was halfway through breaking all of the CDs. But I knew that God wanted me to be generous with him. And I did it. I broke them all. And I cried, honestly. I grieved for a couple of days. And I started to think, God, that took everything out of me. Music was pretty much my life. And now I got rid of all of that music simply because of a still small voice. Maybe God, I wasn't even sure 100% if it was God. Because of this still small voice of God possibly asking me for it. But in hindsight, I don't regret it. In hindsight, I knew, even if it wasn't the will of God, I did it with the intention of being generous with God. And you know what? God outdid me with generosity. He started to provide music for me. And not only, he gave me the ministry and the ability to start creating music. I started to build up a new CD collection of worship music, of music that glorifies God. And to the point where the person in the Christian shop knew who I was and used to ask me advice about Christian music and CDs because of the huge collection I had, which was triple the size of the heavy metal collection I had before. I didn't realize it then, but you see, God gave me so much more than I gave up. And God continues to bless me with music and allow me to be generous to others with the gift of music he's given to me. Now, why am I saying all of this? I want to be like this widow who continues to be generous with God, doesn't calculate the cost, but simply because God deserves it, because our heart and our lives belong to God, I will give even though I'm not sure how I'm going to survive without it. Even though I don't even know if it is God that is asking me to give it, I give because God could possibly be asking me to be generous with him. How generous are you with God? Are you holding back because you're afraid that God won't provide? You're afraid that maybe it isn't God that is asking of you? Well, choose to be extravagantly generous with God, because God will outdo you with generosity. Scripture says, put me to the test in this. Give me and show that I will give you, pressed down, put together in this life and the life to come. God will outdo you with generosity if you do it simply to be generous with him. Like this widow, she wasn't expecting anything back. She wasn't expecting any fame. 2,000 years ago, we're still talking about this woman. She's still impacting the lives of millions of people, and maybe for thousands of years to come will continue to do so because she didn't calculate the cost. She gave extravagantly. Now maybe God is asking of you to lay things down, habits in your life or things, securities in your life, maybe to give to a charity, to help, to reach out to people, and you think, God, I'm not going to be able to do this. But you see, put God to the test in this, he says. Shows, and he will show you, he will look after you. Now be wise, yes, be wise, but also be generous. Always choose to be generous with God. Give him your heart, your life, your time. He will provide. He will provide. I don't even need to give examples, but just please, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to be generous with God, because he'll outdo you always.